character. So what this character currently is a holy. It is a priest knight using holy and dark damage. So I'm using both of them. And I'll talk about why in a little bit, but that's how the basics of the character is going to be broken down. I start with the priest first because priest gives me a little bit better options for leveling and stuff like that. Yes, because I'm going purely holy damage on knight, you don't really get a lot of holy damage skills for optimal leveling. You mostly get physical damage skills and some leech skills, so it's not really the best for leveling overall. So I decided to go with priest. Plus, priest also gives me the priest passives also give me the increases to both dark and holy damage, whereas if I'm using knight, I only get the passives to holy damage. So I wanted to go that route so that I can augment both and then really get the maximum amount of damage out of both of those. So heading into how I distribute my stat points currently, so my mentality when it comes to stat points is get everything to 10. Because once everything is at 10, that's when you start to get the diminishing returns on your investments into each stat point. So whereas it starts out with it'll start out at about 1%, and then once you hit 10, it'll be at that 10%, and then from there it starts to go down gradually to about anywhere from 0.3 to no, I think that's the lowest. I think the lowest it goes down to is about 0.3. So it'll be about a 0.3 increase. So from the beginning, it'll start you out with that 1 flat percent, and then as you keep increasing points, it'll eventually start taking 2 points to get 1% increase of damage. And then as it keeps going, it started to take 3 points to increase 1% points of damage. So that's why I say you need to, for the base, you really want to get 10 into everything. Just for block chance and stuff like that is essential for more melee classes. So if you're a ranged class and you can kill things before they even touch you, this can become a little bit less necessary. But from what I've seen with the dungeons, you still really want to pick up at least the 10% because it just helps you out overall with the amount of stuns that I received in this game are incredibly high. So being able to block things is really nice. Even as a ranged character, getting stunned could be death. So it's just something you really want to focus on. So I made sure to get 10 in every single point. And then as far as my damage types, from what I can tell, focusing on one damage type, yes, you can make it extremely inefficient and it can be very strong at the end. But I feel like focusing into 2 separate skill types actually will be better overall, because then you get a lesser amount of the diminishing returns. And for an example of this, if I go into these 2 skill points, 75 skill points will be at the 50%. So 75 skill points invested into each of these is going to be the 50% damage increase overall. And then after that, it's going to be start to be hell, and it's about 3 points to get anything else after that. So being able to invest into numerous points at that 75 mark, instead of having to invest into one of these at like 100% mark and have lesser amount of it's much better overall for your stats, in my opinion. Because plus doing multiple damage types, there's some bosses that are more resistant to certain damage types and some that are more resistant to other. So being able to have multiple damage types is really nice. And I just feel like that's better overall for optimizing your damage output. Whether it be a tank class, whether it be a healing class, whether it be support, whether you be just a flat out damager. I just feel like using multiple damage types is the most optimal, especially if the damage types are coming from both bravery and blood. I just feel like that's the most optimal usage. Plus there are plenty of, within every single, at least from what I saw, within every single skill tree, barring maybe Arcanist, you can get increases to numerous different damage types through your passive tree. So I think that's really what they're trying to say there as far as those builds are combined. For instance, with this character, I'm using holy and dark damage. So because I'm a priest, I get the 10% increase to holy and dark damage, which actually ends up somewhere around 14% for me right now. And then I also get the 10% increase to holy damage, which again also ends up around 14%. So as soon as I hit level 30, my damage numbers are going to be, instead of being this 136% and 150%, my dark and holy damage will both be 150% already at before I even have the 75 points required to get them to that 50% bonus damage mark. So that's just better overall as far as that. I'm doing the same thing on my Dark Knight Priest. I'm going poison and then dark, so toxic dark. Dark Knight gives you the toxic damage as well as dark damage increases. As far as my range damage, I am going a engineer, and then I'm going natural damage. Engineer gets both fire damage as well as natural damage. So again, it's the same type of thing as far as that. You'll still get the 10%, and then both classes will essentially end up at that 150% mark for those two damage types, which are going to be all your damage sources, which means those will be the maximum damage type. So that's what I mean as far as those stat points distribution. I think that's the most optimal. I just feel like investing 10 points into these two specifically, maybe a little bit more into whichever one you feel. So if you're a more attack oriented class, getting more attack speed might be nice for you. If you want to go a little bit more crit, then getting more crit would be better for you. But overall, you do end up wanting to go probably your highest amounts of points into whatever your damage type is going to be. So either bravery or blood. And no matter what, you're going to want to pick up at least some blood, because you do want that maximum health increase. 10 points into maximum health is very, very useful, so you always are going to want to pick up stuff from that. Heading over to my gear, currently this character is very optimized for what I want to do. So I actually stopped focusing on gear upgrades and started just looking for stuff with specific stats already, and I'm only at 29, so I don't even have the like extreme amounts of gear that will come a little bit later when you start to really focus on your damage type, focus on your penetration, resistance and stuff like that, stun and all that stuff, which comes a little bit later. So right now, all you really focus on, and for newer players, all you're really going to have to focus on as far as your stats are, does it give me enough energy to regen, does it give me enough health, and does it give me enough damage. The masteries and stuff like that are something you could worry about when you're about 15, because you can start to roll for those. For my type of builds, for my build in general, because all of my abilities are kind of damage over times, where I activate them and they persist for a period of time and then do damage while persisting, it's better for me to just go the flat damage, and then as I get towards later levels, I'll start to invest into a little bit more crit. But if your build is more burst, then maybe it's better for you to start with crit and stuff like that. So what I currently have for my setups, especially on my build in particular, I am going at least 2 defensive items and then 1 offensive. So that's how I'm kind of speccing it out. If I really wanted to maximize, balance it, I really want to go for a even split where it's half damage, half defensive. So for my build, I'm looking for life, I'm looking for healing level, I'm looking for healing affinity for defensive stuff. And then for damage, I don't really want critical damage. I actually prefer just the flat damage, so just damage number, hit chance, and then attribute penetration. And then for me specifically, I'm probably gonna end game want to go for staff stuff, which is why I have so much staff mastery currently. I just want to go for like wands and stuff like that. That's my kind of preference. You can go for whatever item you want, and whichever one you want to. You just got to make sure you roll for that. Right now I did pick up an epic. That is the only reason I have dagger mastery, is because this item was just really, really good for me at my current level, and I couldn't really do anything about it. It's actually got perfect stats for everything. It's got the dodge chance, block penetration, then it has dagger master. I rolled dagger master onto it, and then I have healing level and healing affinity, both of which I need. So this item was very, very good. That's why I'm using it instead of a wand. But all my gear is pretty much set up the same way, with healing level, healing affinity, and then whatever else I could pick up. Attribute penetration is nice, though I don't think it takes much effect early in the game. And by early, I mean before level 30. It doesn't really seem to have a huge amount of effect, but it is still nice overall, and it's better overall. So again, hit chance and dodge chance for my pants. For my boots, my gloves, currently my gloves are replaceable at current, but they do have hit chance, maximum health, and block penetration. My boots are currently health, block power, staff mastery, and healing level. Healing level overall, from what I've tested and how it works, healing level is essentially how an increase to your both healing over times as well as you healing other people. So you want higher levels of healing level in order to increase your damage. So we got instant healing, which is stuff like leech or instant cast spells that instantly heal for a percentage, those will automatically be affected by instant healing. Healing over time is dot heals, so certain classes apply dot heals, such as Priest, Arcanist can do a little bit of dot healing, and uh, Knight can do a little bit of dot healing as far as stuff like that. And then Shield Strength is pretty much mainly from Arcanist. I know a couple other classes do have it. Like Engineer. Engineer does have a decent healing level class that applies shield as well. So that is decent as well. So you really want to increase your healing level no matter what your character is. But if you're more a damage type, you can actually succumb to lesser healing level, especially if you're in a party. You can do a little bit lesser of healing level and focus more on healing affinity. So what healing affinity does is it allows your body to accept more healing spells. So if you're in a party mindset, you want to make sure that everybody has a level of healing affinity, especially tanks. Your tanks really want to have a high healing affinity number, because that means you'll get more healing from your healer. So if your healer doesn't really have the stats rolled the way you want them to, and has a little bit lower healing level than you would want, you'll still get extra amounts of healing because of your increased healing affinity. As a party player, you would want to have healing affinity just in general. You want to be able to have stuff like that to be able to augment your the amount of healing that you receive. Because from what I can tell, even though I don't really have the numbers for it or anything like that, I don't have like a DPS meter, a healing meter, none of that stuff. But from what I can tell from my testing and from playing with stuff like that, you want to really balance. If you're a tank, you really want to balance out between healing level and healing affinity, because you're going to end up using some self-healing classes, as well as receiving healing from other people. So you really want to balance these out and get them as high as you possibly can, while still allowing yourself to have a period of damage. I'm probably going to make a pure tank character, but it's going to be hard for me to level that, so I haven't really thought about it yet on how I want to level that. But I'm going to make a pure tank character so I can go over stuff like aggro and how you can get a lot of aggro increases and stuff like that, as far as damage mitigation and as well as buffing. I believe in this game, the way they handle tanks is that you're a little bit more of a buffer as well as a aggro monster. Instead of just being a pure meat tank, you also kind of allow your group to really gain a lot of buffs from you, at least as far as I've seen from my Knight classes. That's what I've seen, is you gain a lot of buffing overall. And most likely I will be a Knight because of the increases to aggro and stuff like that. So I'll probably go Knight, and maybe Knight Dark Knight will probably be my class. Oh, what's up, troll? I'm just hanging out. I was just doing a couple talks on stats, but probably Knight Dark Knight will be my class for that, for just a pure tank, because they have so much increases to aggro and stuff like that. So that's probably what I'll go for. Hit chance is a little bit weird. It's a little bit wonky. It's not exactly as what you would read from this. So when a target is hit, its dodge chance is lowered. However, from what I've seen up to like level 30-ish, no monsters actually have any dodge chance. They just take damage pretty much regardless of this. So if I can't really tell, because I don't have DPS meters or anything like that, so it's hard for me to give you the actual statistics on this stuff. But from what I've seen and what I tested, there's no actual dodge chance at current levels right now. Like, there's not really a lot of dodge chance on low level monsters, so you should be fine leveling without huge amounts of hit chance. However, I will tell you, if you level as dual wielding, you are automatically deducted -14 or 16 in your hit chance. So you do need to optimize that so that you always have a positive hit chance. That is important. So for dual wielding classes like Dark Knight does use dual wielding. They have the increased crit chance for dual wielding stuff. You do kind of want to run a hit chance type thing, because you want to be able to pick up as much hit chance as you can, so that you always have positive with this. Critical hit chance, the 10% here is a little bit misleading, because it's 10% on every single cast. So if you're using multiple abilities that attack multiple times, your hit chance is actually changed. Like, you don't get just the flat 10% chance on every, like, it's 10% chance while an ability persists, from what I've seen. So like, for instance, when I cast my Woven Spirit, this persists for 6 seconds. During that time, it's not 10% on every tick, it's 10% flat. And then once you crit, it kind of resets from what I've seen. If I do if it goes like 6 ticks, if I do 6 ticks in, for example, it'll do no hit, no crit, no crit, and then I'll be at 20%, not at 10%. So it'll go no crit, no crit, crit, back to the 10%, not like no crit, no crit, no crit, and then crit, and then stays another crit because I'm at that 30%. It goes back to the flat 10% from what I've seen. Critical hit damage is a weird stat. Like, you can actually use a really low number of it and still have a pretty good amount of critical damage. Just the way crit works in this game, it's weird. So like, even having a high crit damage number, like even right now my critical hit damage is 72, but I'm at 59% increased damage on my crits. So it's very strange with how that's set up. I don't really use a lot of attack speed, but for classes like Ranger or Archer or stuff like, or Engineer and Archer, attack speed's a little bit more necessary. For my class, it's not that necessary because, again, I'm using damage over time stuff, so it's not a big deal. I did a lot of flat damage bonus. I'm taking a lot of that from my skill tree, and I believe any character, you really want to do that because it just gives you a flat damage number output. When I really test with my tank stats, I'll really look at how much of that you need to be able to hold aggro efficiently, but I think it's a little bit lower. This class is not really designed for tank. Like, I didn't go into this character just thinking of designing it as a tank, so I'm still picking up as much damage bonus as I can, and that's just flat damage bonus stuff. But I think your tanks, because from what I've seen from the stats you can pick up, you can have somewhere around 400, 500, 600, even maybe 1,000 extra aggro bonus. So it's weird as far as how much damage you actually need in corporation with that. But most of your things that you increase, like bravery, blood, prestige, focus, all of those will increase your damage bonus, which is just a flat number overall, including damage bonus. All of that increases your damage overall. And this number seems to take effect when you initially hit things. So if your number is very high, when you initially hit things, you get a better percentage of damage output. For my class, because I'm soloing it, I did run heavy armor, so I really want the extra defensive types. From what I've seen, if you're running light armor and you're not a range class, you're pretty much going to get yourself one shot. The things that can stun lock you can pretty much leave you entirely vulnerable, and you will have no way out with light armor. It's just not really plausible. But if you're ranged, you have a little bit more of an advantage, and you can really kill things without having to worry too much about it. Though I still think, even regardless of you go light armor or heavy armor, you still want a decent amount of defense to be able to get that reduction in the damage. Currently I'm at 44%. I'm still missing a couple pieces of gear. I don't get those till later. You won't get those till later, and my gear again is not the absolute best it could be because I'm focused on my stats more so than my actual gear numbers and stuff like that, so it hasn't been the absolute best for that. Damage resistance doesn't start to take an effect until a little bit later, so I'll come back and talk about that more towards endgame stuff, but this is more focused on up to level 30 and stuff like that, when damage resistance doesn't actually play in any factors and there's not really any ways for you to get it. But what damage resistance is actually referring to is the resistance types. So later game bosses will actually have specific damage outputs that they can do to you. So they'll do physical damage, they'll do energy damage, they'll do holy damage, they'll do fire damage, they'll do toxic damage. Some examples of this, and probably the most deadly thing you could run across while leveling is an elite mob, which are blue mobs, and they have miasma and icy. Miasma is a poison pool. It's essentially the poison pool that Dark Knight gets. It literally is a big circle, and it just does poison damage over time. And then Icy slows you and can freeze you as many times as you're hit. So those two in combination together can be incredibly dangerous while leveling, because if you get frozen, it's going to be very hard for you to get out of that toxic damage pool. And without toxic resistance, you're going to take a really disproportionate amount of damage. So be very wary of that. Stuff like artillery is very dangerous as well. Martyr is very dangerous if you aren't aware of it. Martyr is essentially when you kill the elites and then it leaves a red circle on the ground that explodes. It does, from what I've seen, fire damage. So again, it's just a very dangerous thing. There's no hardcore mode currently, so it's not it's not too bad as far as like what happens if you die. You usually just lose a little bit of durability on your gear and stuff like that. You don't even appear to lose any XP, which is nice because I played games like that and it sucks. But those are just some of the buffs and stuff like that that you can get on elites that you could be aware of that are pretty dangerous from my example. I'm currently at 35% block chance. I'm getting 10% from focus, and then I'm getting the rest from my shield. Um, for me, I run shields. I do a one-handed and shield. I want the extra defense as well as the block chance. That's a flat roll on all shields. All shields will have at least some number of block chance. And then I rolled some staff mastery onto it just for the damage increases as well. You can go dual wield, and as far as leveling, two-handers are actually the best for leveling, unless you get an epic like I did, in which case that will most likely outweigh anything else. But two-handers give you the absolute maximum amount of damage you can have, so running a two-hander for leveling is really nice. You might even want to think about using it as a weapon swap if you're gonna get towards late game stuff and do a one-handed shield setup like I am. You can just weapon swap into a two-handed weapon, and then you'll be fine overall for leveling and stuff like that. That'll help you out. Health is just basic health. Energy is your energy pool. From what I've seen, you don't really have any ways to increase the energy pool. However, energy recovery is important. And you really want to maximize energy recovery and pay attention to your skills so that you're weaving in enough of your basic energy, your basic zero cost energy abilities, so that you're still able to continuously rotate through your abilities to cast your skills. So some of my skills currently only cost about 5 energy, so it's very easy for me to go cast this, instant cast this, automatically back at full energy. So you really want to keep that in mind while you're working through your skills, and you really want to set them up in such a way that you can use them all, and then before they are all back off of cooldown or whatever, you can still have enough energy to once again recast all of them. So that's something you really want to focus on as far as energy recovery. Some classes are more energy punishing than other ones, such as Arcanist. Arcanist is incredibly energy punishing, and from what I can see, the damage numbers are not entirely the best. As far as energy actually does, from what I've seen, a little bit more damage overall than it does a little bit more damage overall than I've seen as far as frost damage. But again, I have to test that a little bit more. I have to see how that works out. But that's just from the numbers I've seen. Aggro bonus I don't really run. Again, that just helps out tank stuff. So for when I run my full tank, I'll probably look into that. Movement speed is just movement speed, and mounted speed is just if you have a mount. So nothing really special there. As far as my skills, so your skills is basically set up, and it has your main class, which is the class you're going to level, and that's where your passive skills are going to come from. So you need to think about your main class first before you do all other things. So when you want to set up a class in your head, you want to think about what damage types you want to do, and then you want to go with the main class that's going to give you passives that will help out with whatever damage type you want to do. Which is why I went Priest, because Priest gives me Out of the Darkness, which gives me the increased dark damage, as well as my little minion buddies, which you'll see as I run this dungeon. And then it also gives me Trial at Dawn, which gives me holy damage, and whenever I deal holy damage, I get the 30% chance of decreasing my enemy's attribute resistance by 50% for 10 seconds, which is a really long time for them to be about a 50% debuff. And then the rest of my skills really give me a lot of buffs, so it's just all works really well together, and that's how you really want to think about things when you're creating classes and creating a playstyle for yourself, is how everything's going to work together and what classes are going to be allowed, what classes are going to let you work everything together. At a first glance, this skill system and everything seems very, very basic as far as what it does and what you need. However, as you play the game, you realize how in-depth everything is, and you realize how important it is to focus on how you spend your skill points. So for me, right now, throughout leveling, I just picked up all the flat damage bonus I could get. Because all of my stuff is damage over time and persistent damage, I need the flat damage bonus so I can make sure each hit does more damage. So I picked up all my flat damage bonus, and damage bonus is flat damage bonus. So overall damage, it affects everything. Attribute damage bonus affects the specific attributes of each skill. So, what I mean by that is, for dark damage specifically, attribute bonus will only affect dark damage. However, if you get attribute damage bonus from your skill tree, it affects all of your attribute bonus damage. So this is a good way to raise the attribute bonus damage for all of your skills, and then let you use whatever you want to specify. So for my skill tree right now, for my current main class, while I was leveling, I've ran all the flat damage bonus. I've run all the attribute damage bonus I could pick up so far. And then I've run all the damage bonus once again. And then for this skill in particular, I picked up the maximum health bonus 2 points and then 1 point dodge chance. So that's how I'm going to run this all the way up to the end. I will do the 1 point into maximum health bonus. So this will actually give me 2% maximum health bonus, which is nice just for more flat health. And then the 1% dodge chance. So I'm going to do that all the way up to here. As far as this, I really want to pick all of this up, but I'll get more skill points later. And again, max level 60, you'll get 60 skill points, so make sure you're thinking about how you're going to work those out. So after I hit level 30, you stop gaining skills, and you start just having extra skill points to be able to level through things. So think about it that way. For me, once I finish with all the damage that I can get from this tree, I'm going to start running into instant healing bonus, as well as healing affinity bonus and healing level. I'm not really looking for the crit chance. You don't really end up using it as much, so I really want to focus on picking up all the extra instant healing I can, so that I can heal myself a lot. So I'll probably give a nice balance for the last 35-ish points. No, it'll probably be 30. Yeah, just 30. So for my last 30 points, I'll probably just max out my damage bonuses, max out my attribute damage bonuses from this skill tree, and then I'll pick up whatever healing level and healing over time and healing infinity that I can get from the tree. So that's what I'll pick up as far as all of that. And then for my secondary class, I'm pretty much taking it with the same type of mentality. However, I did pick up a couple skills overall that I'm going to be used. So as far as, again, I'm just picking up damage bonus, attribute damage bonus, flat damage bonus. Down here, I'm just picking up the straight up armor points. I use this skill, so I'm using armor points from it to maximize just the extra defenses I get from my armor. And then here, I'm also picking up, I'm doing the same exact thing where I'm doing the 1% health chance, 1% block chance. I'm doing the exact same thing. I just went back and forth between the two here, so that's how I'm setting that up. Here I picked up a little crit chance. I'm probably going to end up respecting this, and I'll remove this crit chance. I won't use this skill. I wanted to test this skill and see how much damage it did. It didn't really come out to, what, did I put this on the bar here? It didn't really come up to how I wanted it, so I decided to, I just didn't really like the way it works, so I just didn't want to use it. So I decided to not use this, so I'm going to remove this crit chance, and then I'll pick up some extra damage bonus. And then after I have all the damage bonus that I can pick up from here and stuff like that, I'm going to end up picking, once again, more of the healing I can get, more of healing regeneration I can get, and more healing affinity and stuff like that. I'm going to pick up healing level and all that stuff to really augment my self-healing and stuff like that. And then my passive skills, again, I'm going to be using Son of the Abyss, or not Son of the Abyss, Out of the Darkness, which gives me the little elves, and then Trial of Dawn once I hit level 30 and get my second passive skill unlocked. So as far as skills currently for what I'm running for this build, I'm currently doing this as my AoE pull Solik currently. It just bounces between targets and deals dark damage, and then it also gives me the attack speed increases. I'm going to probably pick up this healing level bonus and all of this, and then for bosses, I'm probably going to end up switching to Fatal Tide, just for the extra healing, and it'll deal holy damage, so then I'll be able to just cast this and deal more holy damage outright. But I haven't gotten to that point yet, and I don't really need to worry about it right now, so for that, I'm just going to level with Soul Link, it allows me to pull about 6 targets from what I've experienced as far as my build and with how much health regen I have currently. Without dying, I can comfortably tank about 15 mobs right now by myself without any issues, which equals about medium to about a medium pull in a end game dungeon. So that's how I'm thinking about it as far as that, and I want to be able to hit all of those. That's why I chose not to use Lethal Link. I instead went with the 6 targets instead of the 3. Even though this will hit all enemies within 15 units, this just gives me a little bit better overall, and it allows me to get my dark elves a little bit easier, so I wanted to stay with that. As far as skills that I'm using, I did gain all the attribute damage points from here, but I'm really sticking with Woven Spirit Garden. I want that healing, I want the dark damage. I tested with Dark Guarding a little bit, but I feel like the extra healing is a little bit easier, especially because the energy cost of this is fairly easy to deal with. The 20% energy cost is fairly easy for you to mitigate. So having the extra healing from it as well as the 45% dark damage is better overall for me than going with the 55% dark damage and then the little bit of defense reduction that you get. As far as this next point, I'm using Flaming Disaster. This is what I use on my right click. It's a really low energy cost, only 5 energy, and then it does 35% dark damage every second and decreases the movement speed of monsters around me. So that's what I'm using as far as my first right click, and I always spam this. It's up almost all the time. It's got a 7-second cooldown and it lasts for 5 seconds, so it only has a 2 seconds in between that you have to wait for it, which you can basically use to cast your Soul Link just to give you more energy. Currently, I'm using Emerging Lights because I was trying to figure out what I was going to use for my last skill, whether I was going to go Cannibal Theft or whether I was going to go Twilight Sanctions, which will eventually upgrade to Inequitable Sanctions. But once I realized that Trial of Dawn gives me the attribute resistance, I no longer needed to pick up the attribute resistance debuff from Soul Reaper. So I decided I'm going to go with Emerging Shadows, which will do the flat dark damage and then give me the root as well as the dark damage over time. And then I'm going to end up running Twilight Sanction or Inequitable Sanctions, which will give me Paralyze as well as a huge holy damage big area AoE effect type ability for that. So that'll be my last skill as far as that. So that's what I'm going to run as far as this. This will be my last skill that I pick up. As far as my secondary class, and I actually could have this right now. You can actually, what you want to do, you can actually drop these 3 points and pick this up early. And just go maximum life, block chance. Instead of just running the flat damage. I took the flat damage because I wasn't sure and I was trying to make that decision between what I wanted to run. And this is a good substitute where it does it gives you the 50% increased damage bonus as well as the 65% holy damage per second to all units around you. So it's very nice overall. It's a pretty decent damage output. And I prefer Onrush right now, but I'm still debating between picking up Starlight as well. So Starlight does a really good amount of damage for the 12 seconds that it's up. However, the reason I wasn't running this is because if I started to use this in parties, I'm gonna have to make sure that I'm the closest one to it. Otherwise, other people aren't gonna really get the benefit from it because it's flat holy damage. So if other people aren't running holy damage builds, then they're not gonna get the damage output that this can optimize. So I wasn't really sure if I wanted to use it that way. So I was really thinking about it and what I wanted to do with that. So I had to take a couple looks at that and figure out. But it's really good damage. So I'm not sure. But all I can really get from it is instant healing. So I have to really think about that and whether I want to use that or not. But what I could do, if I really want to test, and I probably will end up testing, is instead of running Inequitable Sanctions, I can run my Starlight. Because this will be 12 seconds of holy damage, 90% holy damage every second. So it'll hit 12 times, and I'll easily be at 150 plus holy damage overall. So that'll be a really good amount of damage overall. And then, however, Inequitable Sanctions is 985 holy damage. on a one-time attack. So if I do the math on that, we're talking 12 times the 9, 12 times the 90. So 12 times the 90. So essentially, I'm doing 10,080 holy damage over a period of 12 seconds, whereas this will be a instant attack for 985 holy damage. So it's hard for me to decide between the two. I have to think about it, and I'll have to test it out and see how it works out. Again, right now I'm not really focused on doing a full class guide and what I'm doing. I'm just thinking through how I'm running, how I would run it. But I'm gonna just talk about this because I'm about to head into this dungeon to use it. So for my night class, what I'm running currently is I'm using Onrush. This gives me the increased defense. It also affects my teammates, so if I want to do a little bit of party play, this actually helps out my teammates a little bit. I originally was running Order of Judgment, but I don't really care about the crit chance that much. It's nice, but the defense is a little bit better overall, stuff like that. It just feels better, especially against the big mobs before I get any real what am I trying to think of? Before I get any real I want to say crit numbers and stuff like that. You really want I prefer Onrush. Aura, it's just better overall for me. The defense is better than a little bit of offense that you get. And then I'm using Protection of Eternity. This is 200% healing power instantly. So this is why instant healing will help me, as well as healing power, and then healing affinity as well. And then it provides the Protection of Eternity effect, which lasts for 12 seconds. And then while active, the team members with the lowest health within a range of 25 units will also recover their health by 8% of their healing power. So if I'm in a party and nobody else is near me, where I'll be able to kind of group here a little bit. This actually heals me a lot. For right now, from ticks I've done at 3,000 health, I've healed myself instantly for 500, 600 health automatically just on the initial 270%. And then I'm also healing. It does that healing over time because it automatically goes to you if you're in your own party. That 85% healing over time automatically goes to you. So it gives me a nice. It pretty much is out healing my pots right now. My pots give me 60 health every half second. This is actually out healing that. So it's very interesting for how I'm working with that. I'm still not sure though on this. If I don't end up needing this, I'll probably drop this and pick up Starlight. Because Starlight will actually give me way more damage, and dropping this, if I don't end up needing this health regeneration, then, which I imagine I won't, this will be easier to run instead. And this is actually a lower energy cost, so it's actually more efficient for my build. But that's everything I'm running with. All the things, I think I covered everything. I went stats, I went gear, I went passive skills, I went main skills, I went skill tree. Yeah, I covered everything I wanted to do. So the last thing I'm going to do today.
Saturday nights, blueberry cigarillos, swishes make my throat hurt, rolling up.